So, hi everyone. We are going to talk in this session about how to use our language, especially for linguistics and doing statistics. As you know, our language is now becoming in high demand in many aspects of the job market, and a lot of people are using it nowadays instead of SPSS, which was like the mecca for everyone who is interested in doing some statistical analysis. So, what we're going to do in this session, we're going to know what is R and why should we know something about the R language. And we'll go into the housekeeping things like installing R and going into just the first item in R, which is what are the different types of data in R. So, first of all, why R. So R is a language, it's a programming language that is far much easier for anyone to learn. It's not that complicated. So whenever you are having this word programming, a lot of things pop into your mind like, I don't know how to code or what is happening because now I'm not interested in this. But you should keep in mind it's not something scary. You should relax. It's just a piece of cake. It's just because you don't know the jargons or maybe the formula. You say, no, I better stay away from that, which is not something that we can avoid in today's world. So I know when being a part of the humanities studies, doing all the humanities studies like translation, like linguistics, like literature, like composition, rhetoric, all of these branches of the English department, you have nothing to do with programming, right? But you're wrong, my friend. You need to know something about programming. First of all, this is the digital age. Second of all, you're gonna miss a lot of inter- interesting studies that could be conducted easily with the use of computer. So, of course, a lot of people would use Python, which is another tool available. But again, R is just, as I said in the beginning, has become a trend that everyone is trying nowadays to use it, whether it is mathematics or marketing or data analysis or business analytics. All of these branches are using R nowadays. So that makes it easier for you to learn, first of all, because you have tons of resources available, you have tons of tutorial available on YouTube, and you have a lot of people who are interested in helping you out whenever you have a problem. There are infinite number of communities available online just to help you out with any problem. For example, we have JetHub, we have a lot of CRAN, ARP communities, are different areas where can you go to get some kind of help with that. So why R? First of all, R is free, so you don't have to pay like 50 or even 100 bucks to get it. Just think of how much you should pay to get SPSS. And it is online, so maybe it's up to you if you don't have enough space in your device. You don't have to download it. All the work could be done on Drive something in which you can use all the tools available. Thirdly, it is up to date. And more than this, it is easy. It doesn't require much programming background to be able to handle this language. And the fourth, R is trying to help you out by reading your mind. So whenever you try to write down a code or a command that you needed to be executed, it helps you out by guessing what do you have in mind. So for example, if you write down the word install, you will have some suggestion popping up on the screen telling you, do you mean this? You want this? That's why a lot of people nowadays are turning to R for all of these features that we have just gone over. So, how can we get R on our devices? First of all, you can go to the website r.org and you download here. Just you hit this button. I cannot download it on my device right now because it has been there, and you just need to hit this button, download. If you're using, of course, Windows or Mac, different version are there based on your operating system. So here, because I'm using Windows, so I'm using R for the Windows. After you're done with this, and also the idea, the installment process is very easy. It's just you keep hitting the button next, next, next until it's done. Then you need something like the code reader, which is the R Studio. And this is the one. Also, you need to install the R first, which is using this website, the CRAN website. And also, you go to the R Studio, just again, Google it, rstudio.com and .org, or even in R, or just write down download R Studio desktop, and you will get this button. And in this case, you get this code reader, which is the R Studio. After you're done with the installation process, you will be able to do this. So here, this is the interface of the R language. It has four different windows, smaller windows. So each one of these is called lane. So in this case, we have the first one wherein you write down, this is your data set. You can write down your let's for example your data, or you need to assign something, you can use this space. And here is your environment wherein you can store your variable to the data set you have been assigned to certain values. And one more important thing is that here you can import some data set if you have some data set. Here you have all, if we have this bottom, which is file, so in this case you have your packages, and we're gonna go into this in next session. Here, the last one, which is the console, and this is the most important space in the studio, wherein you write down your commands and your code, and you execute all of them. Of course, you can use this space to write down your command, but you need to hit run. But in this one, you just write down the code and just hit enter. And in this case, you're gonna get your command executed. So that's all about the R. Why do we why should we know something about R? What are the component of using R? How can we get R installed on our devices? And what are the windows of the R interface? One main component of being introduced to R is to know what are the different data types in R. The easiest one, which is the variable, and in this variable you assign a variable a value. So let's say, for example, C, and whenever you're going to use C, I need you to keep in mind that C equal 15, for example. So in this case, it is assigning the value of 15 to C. Or let's say names, and whenever you have names, I need you to say names, we have Ahmed. So names, it's Ahmed. So whenever you have a variable and whenever you have a value for this variable, you're going to use this one, which is setting a variable. So a variable, so very basically could be a number like this, could be something numeric or character, or could be something like this, which is polynomial. So As we have noticed, that value contains just one variable, so a variable could contain just one value. If we have a variable that contains more than one value, this is not a variable. In this case, we need to store it in a different data type. And we're gonna go into this in a bit. One more thing that your variable must contain a coherent value. So let's say, for example, hello, we cannot write down for, or it cannot be he, low, low. For example, he dot, and then we have low at the other part of the word. Or we cannot write down he dash, and then we have low. So keep in mind this, if you have a variable, it must have one coherent value, which means if we have numbers, so all the components must be numbers. If we have characters, all the components must be characters. If we have a logical value, and we're going to go into this in a bit, it must be logical values. And here, one easy way to remember the word value is to think of it as a memory. It's a temporary memory. So let's say, for example, you're thinking about something and you're trying to find out what do you mean by x. And whenever we have x, you keep in mind x equals y, or y equals hello, or 2 equals b. So whenever you're writing a variable, keep in mind it must be, as I just mentioned, must be coherent. So for example, a word like this, we have all of it lowercase, word like this, or a dot plus a noun, and then a dot plus a noun plus a dot plus a noun, or the capital letter initial, and then we have the lowercase. But we cannot write something like this because we have character, then we have symbol, and then we have number, then we have character, then we have underscore. Of course, we can use underscore, the dash is the problem in most of the cases, and then we have something like this. So a good example of a variable would be x is assigned the value of 10, dot y is assigned the value of 20, and z assigned the value of x plus dot y. So if I ask the console to execute the z, we're going to have 30. So a variable name can be a combination of only letters, only digits, only periods, only underscores. So we have letters, digit, period, or underscores. Keep this in mind, and if you keep this in mind, you're gonna get valid variable. So let's say, for example, if we have a variable that contains more than one value. So let's say, for example, I want to have a list, or I want to have a set of information. So names, I want to have Ahmed plus Ibrahim and plus John and plus Justin, and then we have some other like Fernando or like Edward, like Thomas. And then we have, in this case, we have more than one value. In this case, we cannot use the variable which we have just mentioned. So what are the other data type that we have in R? We have vectors, we have matrix, we have array, we have list, and we have data frame. So a vector is a sequence of data elements of the same basic type. So keep this in mind again, it is the same basic type. So, which means, so for example, we have logical, we have integer, we have numeric, we have complex, we have character. So all of them must be characters, all of them must be complex, all of them must be numeric, all of them must be integers, and all of them must be logical. So don't use logical with numeric, or don't use complex with logical, or even don't use a character plus a complex. Why? Because a vector is a sequence of elements of the same type. If we try to write down a vector with different types, we're going to have a wording from R. So there are 5 atomic vectors, which are these. So keep this in mind whenever you're writing a vector. And let's say, for example, if we have a matrix, in this case, a matrix, something that wherein you can write more than one type of the data. So let's say, for example, I want to have integer plus numeric, or a numeric plus something like logical. In this case, you're going to use a matrix. So it is a set of, or a sequence of a data set of different types. Then we have number 3, we have array, and array are the object which can be stored in 2 dimensions. So we have dimension 1, dimension 2, while in matrix we have just like a battlefield or a grid. In this case, we have more than one kind of columns or rows. Then we move on to lists. In lists, we have different types of information again. So we could have number, strings, and then we have vectors, and we have lists. Then we have the last data form, the data frame, and data frame is a table-like, or it's a two-dimensional array-like structure in which each column contains value of one variable and each row contains one set of value for each column. So here, all the information related to this variable, and here we have a different information from this column. It's totally different from this one and from this one, from that one. And in this case, we have been introduced to different data set and data types in R. So this is just an introduction to R and how to use different data types in R. So what I do recommend you to do until our next session is to keep practice using R and also to stay tuned for our next session. That's all for today, guys, and bye bye. See you next session.